All right, you guys, welcome back to the Integration Code. I'm your host, Kaylyn Rutkowski, and thank you for tuning in today. I want to have a conversation today that is definitely not going to be for everyone. This is a conversation for my healers, my space holders, my guides, oracles, the people who are really here holding space for others. And I actually was just having a conversation with one of my business partners, and we were talking about this concept of healing the healer and how there really is the shadow side of holding space that really isn't talked about. And it's almost like this element of power, projection, and the collapse that happens when you work with an uninitiated guide. Okay? So, what I notice is there's this moment every real space holder eventually reaches. And it's not a breakthrough, it's not a certification, it's not an awakening. It's the moment you realize this work can eat you alive if you are not initiated in your own nervous system. Okay? I know those out there who hold space, who create circles, who work one on one, right? You feel me on this. Most people who enter the healing field believe that they're here to help others. Very few realize that they are walking into a field of power. And with power, there's also a dark, right? There's also a shadow. This industry doesn't train you for what you become. Nobody really taught me this part of holding space. And here's what almost no training program will ever tell you. You ready? The moment people start opening their trauma, grief, and soul to you, you stop being just a person in their nervous system. You become this regulator, a symbolic parent, a witness, a mirror. And honestly, in some degrees, almost like this guru or God object, even when you never asked to be, right? I know for me, I don't want to be anyone's fucking guru. I want to train you and teach you how to be your own guru. But essentially, like, the psyche doesn't have separation between a shaman, a therapist, a coach, or a facilitator when it's vulnerable, right? When it's wounded. Because when it's in these states, what it ends up happening is it bonds, it projects, it attaches. And this is why so many guides feel kind of like this unexplainable heaviness after sessions, right? This is why clients think about you between sessions or even when you're not working with them. This is why endings hurt more than anyone admits, because attachment really begins to form whether you acknowledge it or not, right? And if you are not trained to work with attachment, you will unconsciously end up entangled with your clients and their psyche. I say this with so much love, but being in this field for over a decade, what I see is that, most healers or people who proclaim to be healers are actually running on survival patterns. And I'm going to say this as, blatantly and painless as I can, but, most people in the healing industry are not healed. Okay? They're functional. They're articulate, they're insightful, they have spiritual literacy, sure. But when we look at their nervous system, they're still wired around being chosen, being needed, feeling special, being safe or finding safety through how useful they think they are. And the problem with this, you guys, is it's creating a hidden hierarchy. It's subconsciously telling yourself, if I am needed, I'm safe. If I'm admired by the masses, well, then I'm secure. And if I'm indispensable, then I belong. So when people come to you vulnerable, your system ends up getting fed. And that is so fucking dangerous, because now you don't just want to help, you want to be necessary. And can you feel the energetic difference in the two of those, of wanting to help and wanting to be necessary? There's a difference. And it's almost like, the cult of safe space is a lie without integration. People love to talk about holding safe spaces, me included, but safety does not come from good intention. It comes from a regulated nervous system. A dysregulated guide can create more harm than an untrained one. Because what essentially begins to happen is trauma has an entry point. A flooded system will pull others into collapse. Right? This is why having energetic integrity is so important with this line of work. An inflated ego will override consent. A lonely healer will blur boundaries. And it's almost like ends up being scandalous in some degree. It's kind of creating points where people get dependent or people end up getting hurt. And this is why whole spiritual communities end up imploding. And it's not because they're evil, but it's because of unintegrated power, right? A dysregulated nervous system where their survival loops and their wounds are running the show, like cloaked in pretty spiritual language. It's not safe, because power without integration is abuse waiting to happen. I'm going to say that again. Having power without integration is literally abuse waiting to happen. And every healer needs to know that you hold power. Okay? You hold so much power. It's power over emotional safety, their nervous system states, helping to make meaning, helping identity shifts, creating people's perceptions. When people are vulnerable, especially, you have so much power. Are you using it for good? Especially for me, like if someone is in an altered state or in a grief process or a trauma release, their psyche is so malleable, right? And they will take cues from you, from me, about what is real. And if you don't know how to track your own reactions, your preferences can become someone else's truth. Your blind spots can essentially become their belief system. Your wounds that you're operating from or projecting can essentially become someone's worldview. And this is how spiritual abuse happens. It's quiet, right? And it's not through this lens of cruelty, but through unconscious influence. And nobody talks about this, right? There's this moment when guides, healers realizes that, I am not here to be powerful, but I'm here to be so clean. So squeaky clean in my energy, clean in my nervous system, clean in my projections, clean in my unmet needs, clean in my own attachments. And this is what separates true leadership from charisma, right? A charismatic healer essentially attracts followers, but an integrated healer creates sovereign beings. There's a big difference in having followers and helping people to establish and embody sovereignty. And I think for me, like, integration and embodiment is the highest form of ethics, because most ethics are really focusing on behavior, and integration is really focusing on state. What state are you in when you hold someone? How grounded or hungry are you? How present or needing are you? How open or defended? Right? Your state matters more than your words, because your energy is literally creating a field that your clients step into. Your nervous system is literally the intervention. It's not even so much about what you're saying or what you're doing. It is literally the space that someone steps into in your presence. And I feel like this is the deepest shadow of holding space, is believing you are above being held, right? Believing that you're so evolved that you don't have your own mentors, you don't have your own mirrors, you don't have containers, practices, people who can see you and see through you, essentially. You will become so dangerous in this space. And it's not because you want to, but it's because you forgot you're also human. Okay? And I know this conversation is not for everyone. It's for the ones who feel the weight of what they hold, the ones who know this work is sacred and risky. It's for those of you who refuse to bypass their own shadow in the name of service. You don't become a healer by opening others, okay? You become a healer by staying open yourself. And truthfully, that is the biggest initiation of your life and that you will ever go through. What I stand for is really creating safe containers and spaces for these type of people, for the people who hold it together for everyone else, who lead everyone else, who guide everyone else, who feels like nobody can see them, nobody can hold them. I am that space. And for those of you who are walking this path and feel like you're ready for this next phase of visibility, initiation, leadership, really unlocking and unleashing your gifts, I curate one-on-one private sessions for altered state therapy in the safety of your own home, where we do the deep work, where there's no bypassing the moment, there's no bypassing the body, there's no bypassing the nervous system. This work is deep, and it's definitely not for everyone, but for those of you who say yes, it will be the most transformational container that you ever step foot in. If you want to learn more about that, you can click into the show notes, or until next time, I'll see you on our next convo.